The first sensation that pierced through the fog of hypersleep was cold. Not the gentle coolness of a ship's life support system, but something alien and sharp against his skin. Commander Kale Voss tried to open his eyes, but his eyelids felt weighted with lead. His throat burned like he'd been breathing acid for days. When consciousness finally claimed him fully, he found himself staring at an unfamiliar ceiling made of what looked like crystalline metal, pulsing with soft bioluminescent veins of light. This wasn't the medical bay of the UCS Normandy. The air smelled different too, cleaner, with an underlying sweetness that reminded him of flowers he couldn't name. He tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. Pain shot through his ribs like lightning, and his left shoulder felt like it had been reconstructed with spare parts. A gentle hand pressed against his chest, easing him back down onto the bed. "Be still," a voice said softly. "Your body needs more time to heal." Kale turned his head and felt his breath catch. Sitting beside his bed was the most beautiful woman he'd ever seen, and she definitely wasn't human. Her skin was a pale blue that seemed to shimmer in the strange light, like moonlight on water. Curly red hair cascaded over her shoulders in waves that defied gravity, and when she looked at him, her eyes were the deep violet of a nebula at sunset. She wore simple clothing that seemed to be made from the same material as the walls, flowing and organic, hugging her curves in a way that made his heart race despite his weakened state. Her features were delicate but strong, with high cheekbones and full lips that curved into a gentle smile when she noticed him watching her. "You're awake," she said, and her voice carried a musical quality that made him want to hear more. "I was beginning to worry. Where am I?" Kale's voice came out as a rasp. "Safe," she replied, reaching for a crystalline cup filled with clear liquid. "You're on Sanctuary Station, in the Kepler system. My people found you drifting in the debris field after the battle." The battle. Memories came flooding back in fragments, plasma fire lighting up space, the Normandy's hull buckling under enemy fire, the evacuation pods launching like scattered seeds. He remembered giving the order to abandon ship, remembered staying behind to buy his crew time to escape. My crew. Safe. Most of them, anyway. 73 survivors were recovered. She helped him sip the water, and it tasted like nothing he'd ever experienced, pure and somehow alive. You were the last one we found. Your pod was badly damaged, life support failing. Another few minutes and. She trailed off, but he could see the weight of those words in her violet eyes. You saved me, he said. It wasn't a question. She nodded, then did something that completely confused him. She reached for his hand and brought it to her lips, pressing a gentle kiss to his knuckles before placing his palm against her cheek. I am Ayla of the Zephyrian clans, she said, her skin warm against his palm. And by the laws of my people, since I saved your life in battle, I now belong to you. Kale stared at her, certain he'd misunderstood. I'm sorry, what? The life bond, she explained, as if it were the most natural thing in the universe. When one saves another from death in combat, their lives become intertwined. I am yours now, Commander Kale Voss. Your servant, your companion, your protector, whatever you need me to be. The casual way she said it made his head spin. This beautiful, ethereal woman was telling him she belonged to him like she was discussing the weather. Everything about it felt wrong. That's not how things work where I come from, he said carefully. Ayla tilted her head, studying him with those incredible eyes. I understand this may be unfamiliar to you. But it is our way. It is who I am now. She squeezed his hand gently. I felt it when I pulled you from that wreckage. The connection. You were so close to death, but you fought to live. I felt your strength, your will. In that moment, our spirits touched. Kale closed his eyes, trying to process this. When he opened them again, she was still there, still real, still looking at him like he was the most important thing in the universe. I don't want to own anyone, he said quietly. For the first time, uncertainty flickered across her features. Then, what do you want? It was a simple question with no simple answer. What did he want? He'd just lost his ship, most of his crew was scattered across the galaxy, and he was stranded on an alien station with a woman who believed she belonged to him. What he wanted was for none of this to have happened. But as he looked into Ayla's eyes, he realized that wasn't entirely true. 3 days passed before Kale was strong enough to leave the medical bay, and Ayla never left his side. She brought him meals of foods he couldn't identify but somehow tasted perfect, helped him with physical therapy exercises, and answered his endless questions about her people and their customs. The Zephyrians are an old race, she explained as they walked slowly through the station's observation deck. Through the massive transparent walls, stars wheeled slowly past, and Kale could see the debris field where his ship had died. We believe that all life is connected by invisible threads. When someone saves another in battle, those threads become visible, binding their fates together. And you actually feel this connection? Kale asked, genuinely curious despite his discomfort with the concept. Ayla paused, her hand trailing along the wall's surface. When I found you in that wreckage, you were clinically dead. Your heart had stopped, your brain activity was minimal. But I felt something. A warmth, a light that hadn't gone out. I performed CPR, the way your people do, but also shared my life force with you through our touch. She turned to face him, and in the starlight, her blue skin seemed to glow. For a moment, I was dying with you. And when you came back, when your heart started beating again, I felt like I was being born for the first time. That's the life bond, Kale. It's not ownership, it's recognition that our souls are now part of each other. Kale studied her face, searching for any sign of deception or delusion. All he found was sincerity and something deeper, a vulnerability that made his chest tighten. What if I told you I don't believe in souls? He asked softly. Then I would say you're wrong, she replied with a small smile. Because I can feel yours right now, and it's beautiful. That night, Kale lay awake in the quarters they'd assigned him, staring at the ceiling and thinking about everything Ayla had told him. The door chimed softly, and he knew without looking who it was. Come in. Ayla entered wearing a simple nightgown that seemed to be made of captured starlight. In her hands, she carried a small bowl filled with what looked like luminescent oil. You're in pain, she said. I can feel it. I'm fine. You're not. She sat on the edge of his bed, setting the bowl on the nightstand. Your shoulder, your ribs, they ache. This will help. Kale wanted to refuse, but the concern in her eyes stopped him. What is it? A healing balm from my world. It's made from the essence of moon flowers and will help reduce inflammation and promote healing. She dipped her fingers in the oil, and they came away glowing softly. May I? He nodded, not trusting his voice. She helped him sit up and carefully pulled his shirt over his head. Her intake of breath made him look down at himself. His torso was a canvas of bruises and healing wounds, testament to how close he'd come to death. Oh, Kale, she whispered, her fingertips hovering just above his skin. You're hurt so badly. I've had worse. That doesn't make it better. She began applying the oil with gentle, careful strokes. Her touch was electric, sending warmth through his entire body. The pain began to recede, replaced by something that felt like liquid starlight flowing through his veins. How does it feel? She asked, her voice softer now. Better. Much better. He caught her hand as she reached for more oil. Ayla, about this life bond thing. You don't have to understand it, she said, meeting his eyes. You just have to let me care for you. But I don't want you to think you have to. She silenced him by pressing her finger gently to his lips. I don't do this because I have to. I do it because when I touch you, when I help ease your pain, I feel complete in a way I never have before. Is that so wrong? Kale stared at her, this beautiful, otherworldly woman who looked at him like he was something precious. Slowly, he reached up and touched her cheek, feeling the silk-soft texture of her skin beneath his palm. No, he said quietly. It's not wrong. She leaned into his touch, closing her eyes. Then let me finish healing you. As her hands continued their work, Cale found himself studying every detail of her face, the way her red curls caught the light, the delicate arch of her eyebrows, the way her lips parted slightly when she concentrated. When she leaned forward to reach a particularly difficult spot on his back, her nightgown shifted, revealing the graceful curve of her neck and the beginning of her collarbone. There, she said finally, sitting back. How do you feel? Like I could take on the entire Carillion fleet, he said, and was rewarded with her musical laugh. Please don't. I just got you back in one piece. The words hung in the air between them, loaded with meaning. Cale realized that somewhere in the past few days, this had stopped being about alien customs and started being about something much more personal. Ayla, he said, his voice rough. I need you to know, I don't want to own you. I don't want a servant or someone who obeys me because they think they have to. Then what do you want? She asked, echoing her question from days before. This time, he had an answer. I want to get to know you. The real you, not the person you think you're supposed to be because of some ancient tradition. She smiled, and it was like watching a sunrise. I would like that very much. As she gathered the oil and prepared to leave, Cale caught her hand again. Ayla. Thank you. For saving me, for taking care of me, for everything. She squeezed his hand gently. Thank you for letting me. After she left, Cale lay back down, his body feeling better than it had since the battle. But it wasn't just the healing oil, it was the growing certainty that whatever was happening between them was real, and it had nothing to do with ancient traditions or life bonds. It had everything to do with the way she looked at him, the way she touched him, and the way he felt when she was near. 2 weeks into his recovery, Cale was cleared for full activity, though he found himself reluctant to leave the station. The logical part of his mind knew he should be arranging transport back to human space, filing reports, and dealing with the aftermath of losing his ship. But every time he started to make those arrangements, he found excuses to delay. The truth was, he didn't want to leave Ayla. She had become his constant companion, showing him the wonders of Sanctuary Station and sharing stories of her homeworld. In return, he found himself opening up about his own past, the battles he'd fought, the friends he'd lost, the weight of command that had slowly been crushing him even before the Normandy's destruction. Tell me about your first command, Ayla said one evening as they sat in the station's arboretum, surrounded by plants from a dozen different worlds. She was curled up beside him on a bench, her head resting on his shoulder as if it was the most natural thing in the universe. The UCS Valiant, Cale said, his fingers absently stroking her hair. I was 28, cocky as hell, and absolutely terrified. My first mission was a simple patrol along the outer rim. Should have been routine. But it wasn't. Pirates had taken a civilian transport. 300 passengers, including families with children. He felt her shift against him, listening intently. My orders were to wait for backup, but they were threatening to start executing hostages. I couldn't just sit there and watch people die. What did you do? Something incredibly stupid. I took the Valiant in alone, used the ship's communications array to broadcast a fake distress signal that made it sound like we were crippled. When they came to investigate, thinking they'd get an easy prize, we were ready for them. Ayla lifted her head to look at him. It worked. It worked. We saved everyone aboard that transport. But I learned something that day, command isn't about following orders. It's about making the hard choices when no one else can. Is that why you stayed behind on your ship? To make sure your crew could escape? Cale nodded. Someone had to. If I hadn't kept the engines running for those extra minutes, the evacuation pods would never have made it clear of the blast radius. And you were willing to die for that. I was willing to die for them, yes. That's what command means, your people come first, always. Ayla was quiet for a long moment, then she reached up and touched his face. Is that what you think happened when I saved you? That I was just following orders? Kale paused, looking into her violet eyes. I don't know. Were you? I was ordered to help with the rescue operation, yes. But when I found you in that wreckage, when I felt your life slipping away, that wasn't duty, Kale. That was desperation. I couldn't bear the thought of losing you before I'd even met you. Her words hit him like a physical blow. Ayla. I know it sounds impossible. How can you miss someone you've never known? But I felt it, Kale. I felt like I'd been waiting my whole life to find you, and I wasn't going to let you slip away. Before he could respond, she kissed him. It was soft at first, tentative, as if she was asking permission. When he didn't pull away, she deepened the kiss, her arms sliding around his neck. Kale felt like he was drowning in sensation. Her lips were soft and warm, her body pressed against his, and there was something about her scent, like ocean breeze and night-blooming flowers, that made his head spin. When they finally broke apart, they were both breathing heavily. Is this what you want? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Not because of the life bond, not because of tradition, but because of us. Yes, he said without hesitation. God, yes. She smiled and kissed him again, and this time when she pulled back, there was mischief in her eyes. Then come with me. She led him through the station's corridors to her quarters, which were unlike anything he'd ever seen. The walls seemed to pulse with gentle bioluminescence, and the furniture appeared to be grown rather than built. In the center of the room was a bed that looked like it was made from crystallized water, covered in fabrics that shifted color as they moved. This is beautiful, Kale said, genuinely awed. It's nothing compared to my homeworld, Ayla said, suddenly shy. But it's home for now. She moved to a small table and began lighting candles that filled the room with that intoxicating floral scent. In the candlelight, her blue skin seemed to glow, and Kale found himself staring at her with an intensity that made her blush. Are you sure about this? He asked. Once we cross this line, there's no going back. Ayla moved closer, her hands coming to rest on his chest. I've been sure since the moment I pulled you from that wreckage. The question is, are you? Instead of answering with words, Kale cupped her face in his hands and kissed her with all the pent-up desire he'd been holding back. She melted against him, her body fitting perfectly against his as if they'd been made for each other. Their clothes seemed to disappear as if by magic, and when Ayla's skin touched his, it was like coming home. She was soft and warm and utterly beautiful, and when she whispered his name, it sounded like a prayer. They made love slowly, tenderly, as if they had all the time in the universe. Kale marveled at every inch of her, the way her skin seemed to shimmer in the candlelight, the soft sound she made when he touched her, the way she looked at him like he was the only thing that mattered in the universe. Afterward, they lay tangled together, her head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat. I can feel it, she said softly. Your soul. It's warm and strong and beautiful. I can feel yours too, Kale admitted. I don't know how, but I can. She lifted her head to look at him, and he could see tears in her violet eyes. So you believe now? In the life bond? Kale thought about it for a moment, then shook his head. No. I believe in us. I believe in what we have together. Call it a life bond, call it love, call it whatever you want, I know it's real. Ayla smiled and kissed him softly. Then we're the same thing. As they drifted off to sleep in each other's arms, Kale couldn't help but think that maybe losing his ship hadn't been the disaster he'd thought. Maybe it had been the best thing that ever happened to him. The peace Kale had found in Ayla's arms was shattered 3 days later when an alien ship arrived at Sanctuary Station. It was sleek and organic looking, like a living creature rather than a machine, and it bore the markings of the Zephyrian conclave. They've come for me, Ayla said, her face pale as she watched the ship dock through the observation window. I knew they would eventually. Who? Kale asked, though he already dreaded the answer. The conclave. The governing body of my people. They'll have heard about the life bond by now, and they'll want to verify it. She turned to face him, and he could see the fear in her eyes. Kale, there's something I haven't told you about our customs. What? The life bond isn't just between two individuals. It has to be sanctioned by the conclave to be considered valid. If they determine that the bond was improperly formed. She swallowed hard. They'll take me back to Zephyria to be cleansed. Cleansed. It's a ritual process that severs all emotional connections formed outside proper channels. It would make me forget you, forget what we have together. I would become a blank slate, ready to be properly bonded to someone of their choosing. Kale felt ice forming in his veins. Over my dead body. You don't understand. The conclave has absolute authority over our people. I have no choice in this matter. There's always a choice, Kale said firmly. I won't let them take you. Before Ayla could respond, the door to their quarters chimed. A voice spoke in the melodic Zephyrian language, and Ayla's shoulders slumped in defeat. They're here, she whispered. The delegation consisted of 3 Zephyrians, each more imposing than the last. They were tall and elegant, with the same blue skin and otherworldly features as Ayla, but their eyes held a coldness that made Kale's hand instinctively move to where his sidearm would normally be. The leader, a woman with silver hair and piercing golden eyes, spoke in accented standard. I am Counselor Vexaw of the Conclave. You are the human who claims to be life-bonded to Ayla of the Stormwind clan. I am Commander Kale Voss, he replied, stepping protectively in front of Ayla. And I don't claim anything. I'm simply here with someone I care about. Vexaw's expression didn't change. The life bond is not a matter of personal preference, human. It is a sacred covenant that must be properly observed and sanctioned. Ayla was not authorized to form such a bond. She saved my life, Kale said. That's how it works, isn't it? The circumstances are irregular. You are not of our people, and the bond was formed without proper witnesses or ceremonies. It is invalid. Invalid? Kale felt his temper rising. She risked her life to save mine. She brought me back from the dead. How is that invalid? Because, Vexaw said coldly, she is already promised to another. Ayla, you will return with us immediately to fulfill your obligations to the conclave. Kale felt Ayla's hand grip his arm, her fingers trembling. I won't go, she said quietly. You have no choice in this matter, Vexaw replied. You are bound by the laws of our people. Then maybe it's time to change those laws, Kale said, stepping forward. You can't force someone to love another person. You can't manufacture connections that don't exist. Love? Vexaw laughed, a sound like breaking crystal. You humans are so naive. Love is chaos, emotion without purpose. The life bond is about compatibility, about creating strong offspring and maintaining the purity of our bloodlines. Ayla's match has been chosen based on genetic compatibility and social standing. It is a far more suitable arrangement than this, infatuation. It's not infatuation, Ayla said, finding her voice. What Kale and I have is real. It's everything the life bond is supposed to be, 2 souls recognizing each other across impossible odds. Foolish child, Vexaw said dismissively. You have been corrupted by alien influence. The cleansing ritual will restore your proper perspective. No. Ayla stepped forward, her chin raised defiantly. I refuse to undergo the cleansing. I choose to remain with Kale. You have no choice. She has every choice, Kale interrupted. She's a living being with her own thoughts and feelings. She's not property to be traded around for political convenience. Vexaw's eyes narrowed. You dare to lecture us on our own customs? I dare to stand up for someone I love, Kale said. And if that means going through you, so be it. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. The other 2 counselors moved to flank Vexaw, and Kale could see they were preparing for a fight. But before anyone could make a move, Ayla stepped between them. Stop, she said firmly. This isn't the way. She turned to face Vexa, and when she spoke, her voice carried a authority Kale had never heard before. I invoke the right of severance. The counselors' faces went pale. You cannot, Vexa whispered. The right of severance has not been invoked in over 2 centuries. What's the right of severance? Kale asked. An ancient law, Ayla explained, never taking her eyes off Vexa. Any Zephyrian can choose to sever all ties with the conclave and renounce their citizenship. It means I can never return to Zephyria, never contact my family again, never be part of my people. But it also means I'm free to make my own choices. Ayla, no, Kale said, grabbing her hand. You can't give up everything for me. She turned to face him, and her eyes were blazing with determination. I'm not giving up everything. I'm choosing everything that matters. She looked back at Vexa. I formally invoke the right of severance. I renounce my citizenship in the Zephyrian conclave and accept exile from my homeworld. I choose to remain with Kale Voss as a free individual. Vexa stared at her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. So be it. You are no longer Ayla of the Stormwind clan. You are nothing to us. I'm something to me, Ayla replied. That's all that matters. After the counselors left, Kale pulled Ayla into his arms, holding her tightly as she shook with the magnitude of what she'd just done. I'm sorry, he whispered into her hair. I'm so sorry you had to choose. I'm not, she said, pulling back to look at him. For the first time in my life, I got to choose. And I chose you. But your family, your people, will survive without me. But I wouldn't survive without you. She cupped his face in her hands. Don't you understand, Kale? You've given me something I never had before, freedom. The freedom to choose who I want to be, who I want to love. That's worth any sacrifice. As they held each other in the aftermath of her defiance, Kale realized that the woman in his arms was no longer the uncertain girl who had claimed to belong to him. She was someone who had chosen her own path, fought for her own happiness, and stood up to the most powerful force in her society. She was magnificent. And she was his, not because of any ancient tradition or life bond, but because she had chosen to be. 6 months later, Kale stood on the bridge of his new ship, the UCS Phoenix, watching the stars whirl past as they traveled toward their next assignment. The ship was smaller than the Normandy, but it was his, and more importantly, it was theirs. Commander, came a familiar voice from behind him. We're approaching the Kepler system. Shall I take us to Sanctuary Station? Kale turned to see Ayla approaching, wearing the deep blue uniform of a Starfleet xenobiologist. The sight of her still took his breath away. She moved with the fluid grace of someone who had found her place in the universe, and when she smiled at him, it was like watching the sun rise. Absolutely, he said. I promised Dr. Thane we'd deliver those medical supplies personally. And I promised Captain Raxin that we'd share our findings about the Andrian mineral deposits, Ayla added, coming to stand beside him at the viewport. It's good to be going back. Even though it's where everything started. She leaned against him, and he automatically wrapped his arm around her waist. Especially because it's where everything started. The past 6 months had been a whirlwind of activity. After Ayla's confrontation with the conclave, they'd had to figure out their future together. Kale had been offered a new command, but he'd almost turned it down rather than leave Ayla behind. She'd solved that problem by applying for a position in Starfleet's Xenobiology division, bringing her extensive knowledge of alien ecosystems and cultures to the service. Commander Voss, came a voice from the communications station. We're receiving a transmission from Sanctuary Station. It's Captain Raxin. Put him through, Kale said. The main view screen flickered to life, showing the familiar face of the Zephyrian captain who had helped rescue the Normandy survivors. His expression was troubled. Kale, Ayla, I'm glad you're both safe. I have some news you need to hear. What kind of news? Ayla asked, moving closer to the screen. The conclave has been overthrown. A group of younger Zephyrians led a revolution against the old ways. They're calling themselves the New Covenant, and they've abolished the arranged bonding system. Ayla's hand flew to her mouth. What? It seems your act of defiance inspired others. Dozens of young Zephyrians have invoked the right of severance over the past few months, and the conclave's authority began to crumble. The final blow came when Counselor Vexaw's own daughter publicly renounced her arranged bond and fled to the Outer Rim. Is she safe? Ayla asked immediately. She's fine. And more importantly, the new government has issued a formal apology to all those who were exiled under the old system. You're welcome to return to Zephyria anytime you choose. Kale felt Ayla tense beside him. I don't know what to say. You don't have to decide now, Raxin said gently. The invitation is open whenever you're ready. But I thought you should know, you're not exiles anymore. You're heroes. After the transmission ended, Kale and Ayla stood in silence, processing what they'd heard. How do you feel? Kale asked finally. Overwhelmed, Ayla admitted. I never expected. I never thought my choice would matter to anyone but us. All the best choices do, Kale said. They ripple outward in ways we can't imagine. Do you think I should go back? To see my family, to help with the transition? Kale considered the question carefully. I think you should do whatever feels right to you. But remember, you're not the same person who left Zephyria. You've grown, changed, become someone new. Make sure you're going back for the right reasons. Ayla nodded slowly. I think I'd like to visit someday. To see the changes, to help if I can. But not to stay. My home is here now, with you. You're sure? She turned in his arms, rising on her toes to kiss him softly. I chose you once, Kale Voss. I choose you again, every day. Not because of a life bond or tradition or anything else, because I love you. Because when I'm with you, I'm exactly who I'm meant to be. And who's that? He asked, smiling. Free. Happy. Whole. She grinned mischievously. Also, apparently, a revolutionary. Who knew? Kale laughed and spun her around, both of them grinning like idiots. When he set her down, she was still smiling, but there was something serious in her eyes. What is it? He asked. There's something I need to tell you. Something I've been thinking about for a while now. Okay. I want to marry you. Not a life bond, not a political arrangement, but a real marriage. Two people choosing to spend their lives together as equals. Kale felt his heart skip a beat. Are you proposing to me? I suppose I am. Is that a problem? Only if you expect me to say no. He pulled her close, kissing her with all the love and passion he felt for this incredible woman who had changed his life in every possible way. Yes. Yes, absolutely yes. That night, as they lay in bed together, Ayla traced lazy patterns on Kale's chest with her fingertips. Do you ever regret it? She asked. Losing the Normandy, being stranded on Sanctuary Station. Never, Kale said without hesitation. If I hadn't lost the Normandy, I never would have met you. I never would have discovered what it means to be truly happy. Even if it meant 73 of your crew members are scattered across the galaxy. They're not scattered, they're living their lives, following their own paths. Just like we are. He caught her hand and brought it to his lips. Besides, most of them have found their way back to Starfleet. We're not the only ones who ended up better off. Ayla snuggled closer to him. Do you think we'll have children someday? Do you want children? I think I do. Little ones with your stubborn streak and my ability to cause diplomatic incidents. Kale laughed. Terrifying. The universe won't know what hit it. Is that a yes? That's a yes to everything, Ayla. Whatever you want, whatever makes you happy, yes. She was quiet for a moment, then said softly, "I love you, Kale Voss. I love you too, Ayla of the New Covenant. My partner, my equal, my choice. And you're mine," she murmured against his chest. "Always and forever." As they drifted off to sleep, Kale thought about the path that had brought them here. A battle that had cost him his ship but saved his crew. A rescue that had brought them together. A choice that had set them both free. Sometimes the best things in life came from the worst disasters. Sometimes losing everything was the only way to find what you were really looking for. And sometimes, if you were very lucky, you found someone who chose to love you not because they had to, but because they wanted to. Someone who saw you not as a savior or a master, but as an equal. Someone who made you better than you ever thought you could be. As Ayla's breathing deepened into sleep, Kale smiled into the darkness. Tomorrow they would dock at Sanctuary Station, where their story had begun. They would deliver medical supplies, share their research, and continue the work of building bridges between different worlds and peoples. But tonight, they were simply two people who had found each other across impossible odds, two souls who had chosen to be together not because of destiny or tradition, but because of love. And that, Kale thought as sleep finally claimed him, was the most beautiful thing in the universe.